Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Welln'ish. If you're a wine lover, we have a very special guest for you today, Carolyn Aubry, also known as Whine Mom. Carolyn is a sommelier, an entrepreneur, a creative, and also a natural wine expert. So I'm super excited for you guys to get to learn about that today. Carolyn is also a endometriosis advocate, having gotten a diagnosis not too long ago. So we'll be discussing what it's like to manage a chronic illness in the context of the wine-loving Joie de Vivre context that she's in. So super excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. One of the reasons I'm so excited to have you here is because for my family, our culture, we love family dinners. We love to sit around the table and drink wine and talk. And so I just feel like I've naturally gravitated towards all of your content. But I was very curious what kind of ignited your love for wine.
I've been in the service industry for over 10 years. Started humbly as a hostess at a sports bar and then kind of worked my way up to working in a natural wine bar. And for the longest time, working in restaurants was just kind of a means to an end to pay the bills and get through university. But then the farther I got into my degree, the more I realized it wasn't really for me. So I decided to pursue wine full time instead and realized that that was a huge passion of mine. And I had so many amazing mentors and supportive staff around me who were really open minded and were gracious enough to teach me everything about natural wine. And so I decided to go the whole mile and do my WSET 3, which is a wine diploma based out of London, but they do it worldwide. And I passed that with honors in 2019 and haven't really looked back since. So it's been a passion turned full-time job, which I'm really lucky to have.
I love it. And so then how did you become Wine Mom?
That kind of happened as an accident. It's been my Instagram handle for as long as I can remember as a kind of joke, that I'm the wine mom of the group. I'm always the one
Love
bringing
it.
bottles to dinner and making sure that everyone's okay and always
Every
taking care.
friend group needs a wine mom.
Exactly. So I'm the wine mom of the group and working at this wine bar in St. Henry called Loic. It just kind of became a nickname and then snowballed organically. And I realized when I wanted to start my own business that people already know me as that name. So it was kind of a built-in business name already. And I was really lucky to have this organic branding kind of come to fruition.
From a marketing perspective, I feel like it's such a solid name that came from an inside joke. Like I just feel like you get your message across, you're the wine mom, the one who everyone looks up to for recommendations, who just knows everything. I don't know. I think that's really cool that it just worked out from an inside joke.
Yeah, thank you. I was really lucky, and what's really fun is that my favorite clients are actual wine moms. A lot of my friends' moms will text me
I love
for
that.
advice or want to do virtual tastings, and that's my bread and butter. It's super fun.
Awesome. So what pushed you in the direction of natural wines?
It's how I started in the industry because I worked at a natural wine bar, and so I kind of didn't know any different.
Mm.
And I'll never forget my first natural wine that I ever tried because it was just so different than anything I had ever had. Growing up, my family loved huge cabs, things like Ménage à Trois. And so I thought that reds were just these like big syrupy
Mm.
um, wines. And so I wasn't a big wine fanatic at all until I started at this wine bar. And the first red that I had was so light and vibrant and full of energy. And that memory is forever going to be ingrained in my brain because it was so special and taught me that there's a whole other world of wine out there. And I never went back after that. That specific wine is now available at the SAQ once a year. So whenever it comes in, I buy 6 of
What
it.
wine is
And
it?
it's called Cuvée de Marie-Lou by Guy Breton from the Beaujolais
Hmm.
area. And it comes in usually around the month of November.
Okay.
And it's becoming more and more popular. So look out for it on the SAQ site, but because sometimes it rarely reaches stores now.
Hmm.
But it's a beautiful wine. It's the winemaker's dedication to his daughter, which is also really special. Has a really
Mm.
beautiful label that's blue with a butterfly on it, and every year it's fantastic. So even though it's not the fanciest wine I've ever had or the most expensive, it's the one that
Most
I have,
meaningful.
yeah, the one that I have the most emotional tie to. So it's very special.
That's a really cool story.
Of
Thanks for sharing.
course.
So for the people like I was when I after doing my first virtual session with you, can you explain or dumb down what I know it's super complicated, but what exactly is a natural wine?
Yes, absolutely. So the best way to describe it is processed versus organic food. It's the exact same thing with wines. So, with conventional wines, which is the majority of wines that you would find in the SAQ, they're able to add a bunch of different chemicals and additives to them. And natural wine is the opposite of that. They're trying to add little to no additives and sulfates to the wine. So, it's just the best mind and body conscious thing to be putting in your body. And I think that's really important because we put such a focus on what we eat. And so I think it should be the same with our alcohol choices. And especially in the States, they're able to add a bunch of insane things to their wines. And the scary part with food versus wine is that with food, you have to list everything that is in the food, but with wine you don't. So I
Mm.
think that's why a lot of people say, "Oh, I turn very red when I have a red wine, or I find that I'm having allergic reactions." That makes a lot of sense to me because winemakers are allowed to add egg preservatives, copper, added sulfur, etc. So very sneaky
Insane.
ingredients that you would never think would be in your wine. And so natural wine, they might add a little bit of sulfur at bottling just in order to ensure that it travels well and is stable enough to get to you. But typically, natural wine has no additives, no preservatives, and some winemakers go the extra mile and work biodynamically, which is a little more intense and hippy dippy, but I really do respect it. They follow the lunar calendar, typically have a really intense agricultural program on their vineyard slash farm, where they, really focus on their soils and typically plow with horses instead of tractors so that there's no gas emissions, etc. So
Wow.
it's really interesting, and I think that people should definitely try natural wine at least once in their life just to experience it because it'll taste like nothing else you've ever had. Because with conventional wines, the goal of adding all of these additives and preservatives is to make sure that the wine tastes exactly the same every time. For example, you'd be really put off if Coca-Cola tasted different from the last time you had it. So,
Hmm.
same thing with conventional wine. They're trying to make sure that you have the same experience every time. But the beauty with natural wine is they want the terroir of the area they're making the wine to resonate with you and also have the grapes fully express themselves. So it does taste different from year to year because depending on the weather that year or the winemaking technique that the winemaker chose, it will taste very unique and different from year to year. And I think that's very special.
I could not agree more. I think during your virtual session, you mentioned, I think it was the example was Liano, and I had never thought of it before. Why does it taste the same every single time I have it? And then you're like, additives. They want to make sure that, you're buying the wine for the taste, and I get that for them from a marketing perspective, but Mother Nature is not that simple. So it's a good thing to be asking yourself why are they able to get the grapes to taste the exact same every year and they're not. It's everything they're adding to it.
Exactly.
Oh, another thing I thought would be cool to share, and I guess we'll talk more specifically to Montreal, but I find it's hard to know which wines are natural and not. And you had given us a few resources, so I was wondering if you could just speak on that. How can people find where the natural wine selection is and help
Yeah,
them
of
out with
course.
that?
So the SAQ is becoming better and better about having natural wine sections, especially at SAQ Sélections or the bigger SAQs. And there's also a couple importation companies that bring in exclusively natural wine that you can find at the SAQ. I specifically love looking for Unapol wines, which have a little blue sticker on the
I
labels.
follow them now because of you. And you can
I love
filter
that.
to find them on the app.
Yeah, exactly. You can use the SAQ site and put in that agency name, and it'll show you everything that they bring into the SAQ. I think because of the pandemic, they've been bringing in a lot more wines into the SAQ instead of restaurants. And so that's to a huge benefit of the everyday wine drinker because now you can find a lot more fun stuff at the SAQ. There's also Raisin and La Cuvée that bring in quite a few natural wines into the SAQ. And we also have the privilege of having a huge array of natural wine bars in Montreal now, which is phenomenal. Um, and makes, I think, the wine culture a lot more fun and dynamic, especially in Montreal.
I love that. Speaking of Montreal, another question is, do you have any recommendations for Wine Mom approved restaurants with wine lists, like really good wine lists, or who are into natural wines or have really good sommeliers?
Yeah, there's so many, but the ones that I gravitate to a lot is Alma slash Tank Set. They're right beside each other, owned by this amazing couple named Juan and Lindsay. It's Catalonian influence, and so her wine list is unlike any other in the city in the sense where it's very focused and very niche, and it's a
Cool.
climate where you just want to drink everything that they have. It's fresh, it's saline,
Mm,
it's really fun. There's a lot of energy in the wines, and she knows so much. She's really like a wealth of knowledge. So I love going there
so
because I
cool.
always learn something new and get to try something that you can't find anywhere else in Montreal. And for
What
me,
part of town is that in?
that is in Outremont on Avenue La Joie.
Okay.
Um, Tank Set is more of their tapas wine bar, and then Alma is more of their kind of fancy sit down tasting menu restaurant. Both are phenomenal, depending on what vibe you're looking for, but either one, they have amazing wines. And so, as a wine geek, I just love being able to try wines that I haven't been able to before.
Love
Um,
it.
and then, where else? I really do love this restaurant called Salle Climatisée, which is right next to my work right now. It's on Saint Laurent, close to Beaubien. The person who runs the wine list there is very creative, and I find that she picks a lot of things that again, I haven't seen in many other restaurants. So I always find that really fun. And for price point wise, my favorite wine bar right now is Vin in Rosemont. There's just so many amazing wines at affordable prices, and that's harder and harder to find these days because the price of everything is going up. And so I really appreciate that they try to keep it really cheap and cheerful, and I find their list really fun. It's categorized in a very different way than any other Montreal list. It's instead of by color or region, it's by kind of like style or emotion. So it's like
Oh, very
bubbly,
cool.
fizzy, more juicy, easygoing
Hmm.
wines.
Love that.
So I find it really fun that they have that different kind of like categorization. And I'm also a huge stickler for front of house staff experience because I've been a server basically
Hmm.
my whole life. So I really love that even though I don't know a single person who works there, I've never had bad service. They're
Very
really
cool.
amazing at what they do. So I highly suggest going there if you've never been.
Okay, it's definitely on my list now.
Yay.
I should be taking notes during this. But I'm going to re-listen and I'll try to post all of your recommendations also for anyone who's listening now. I'll post it on Instagram and I'll even post everything in the description.
Amazing.
So I wanted to circle back to something you started talking about, which was the health benefits of natural wine. So I guess silly question, but have you ever had people tell you that you get less of a hangover having natural wines or?
I've definitely had people tell me this, and I mean, I guess just as I get older, no matter how much wine I have, I get a hangover. So it is still an alcohol that dehydrates you. So I think it's kind of hard to avoid a hangover. However, I think that conventional wines can make you more prone to headaches, even the night of.
Mm,
Um, and so I do have a friend who's hypersensitive to sulfates. And so she has to even be careful with natural wines because, as I said before, sometimes they can add a little bit at bottling. And sulfates do naturally occur in wine um, as it is. So to have a bunch added can be really bad for you. And I have a friend who, when she drinks conventional wine or even a natural one that has a bit added, her face turns beet red and she'll
mm,
immediately get a migraine. So it's no joke. I've seen it in real life, and I
yeah.
definitely believe people when they say this. There's definitely different schools of thought about it in the sommelier community. A lot of people don't really believe in it, but I've seen it from my own eyes, so I
Well,
think
I
it's a
can
real
speak
thing.
from experience as well. Like this past summer, sadly, I kept getting this allergic reaction, and I could show you photos. Like my eyes were almost swollen shut. And then I was trying to figure out, and like my breathing started getting affected.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then I was going back, like looking at all the times that had happened, and the only common denominator was wine, which is so depressing. I was like, make it be anything
Yeah.
else, please. Um, but yeah, so then I started. It's interesting what you said because then I started looking for natural wines to see if that would make a difference because it really was red wine specifically. I had never reacted to white. But then when I was even some of the natural wines that I would find at the store said sulfates, and I was like, but now that makes sense because they're, like you said, they're naturally occurring, and you do need a small amount of it to just help preserve and travel. So that clears up that question. But it's crazy how much more there must be in the other wines that I was reacting to because I was perfectly fine with the natural wines.
Oh yeah. And yeah, like I said, it's so scary that they don't have to label everything that they add. So it really is a guessing game as to what you're ingesting when you're drinking a conventional wine.
I can't believe there's egg in it. That's really mind blowing to me because that's such a big allergen, and it's even an allergen for me. So I wonder if that could be the link. But some people are severely anaphylactic, so I'm shocked that they don't have to at least put that on the label.
I know egg and fish preservatives are common,
Oh my God.
which is gross.
It's gross. Oh my
Yeah, it's
gosh.
wild.
So to go in a little bit more of a creative direction, I love all of your branding, not only for your Whine Mom, but also Endo Mom, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But I was wondering how you came up with all the creative visuals, because yeah, I just find them so beautiful.
Thank you. I was really lucky that my mini me, my little cartoon, was actually gifted to me as a parting gift from Loic. We had a friend of the bar who is a doodler. He likes to call himself a doodler. He makes all these fun cartoons.
Love
And
it.
so the owners of Loic commissioned him to make this doodle of me and put it on a tote bag as a goodbye gift. And it was
Mm,
kind of a, this little joke, but everyone there that night at my goodbye shift was like, "Oh, how much? How much? I want this. This is amazing."
so funny.
So for my first Whine Mom wine tasting that I did at the St. Henry bookstore right after I left Loic, I asked this friend of ours if he could make t-shirts with the cartoon on it. And it was kind of history after that. Everyone was just really excited about the brand and really excited about this cartoon. Um, so I'm forever grateful for him. His name's Connor, and he just doodles for fun. So he's a really funny guy and very, very talented. And I think he's even started painting now, which is really cool. I'm happy for him. And then the Whine Mom brand kind of evolved into more of a vintage feel because I love vintage everything. I'm a huge hoarder and have a closet full of dresses from the 50s and 60s that I've just collected over the past decade. And I wanted to highlight them because they just sit in my closet and I almost never have the guts to actually wear them in public. So I luckily have a lot of friends that are photographers or kind of in that creative realm. And so they supported me and were like, all right, let's do it. Let's do these fun photo shoots. I think that they'll be great for your brand. And that too, it was so well received. And I was really lucky that my my tastes were kind of well received by everyone. It could have been a hit or a miss, but I was really lucky. So I just really love working with different creatives. I'm really fortunate that I have a lot of friends around me that are kind of in that realms, whether they're stylists or thrifters or photographers. And then, yeah, for my endo account, I have a friend, Hamza, who works exclusively with film. And so I really wanted that softness and that graininess to my photos. And I also just
Mm.
love the whimsical aspect of film photography in the sense where maybe you'll only get one good photo. And so there's kind of that like gamble that I find really romantic in the
Hmm.
sense where it makes the photos that much more special when they do come out really nice.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky, he warned me being like, yeah, just you need to know there might be only two good shots out of the 40 that we take today. And I was really lucky. We ended up with about 10 really beautiful photos. So
I'm shocked that it was a man who shot those because they're beautiful and so feminine and delicate and exactly you said whimsical. I love that term, but yeah, he did an amazing job.
I'm so grateful for him because he was really supportive about executing my vision, and it came together so fast. We planned the photo shoot within 2 days, and we're like, all right, you go get the fruits and I'll go get the flowers and I'll bring this bed sheet. And it just came
Yeah.
together really beautifully. And he knew what I wanted without me even vocalizing it. He chose this beautiful pastel hue film
Mm.
um, that I hadn't even thought of, and it's so beautiful with the photos. It just I find enhances it even more. And he's extremely talented at what he does, and especially with the precarity of these types of industries, I think that he's so special because he really works with people who yeah, have different issues or strifes, and he knows how to capture someone so beautifully. So I highly encourage following him. I think his current handle is Shem's Studio, but I'll text you after so that you can put it in the
Yeah, that'd
description
be great.
because yeah, he's amazing to work with.
Love that. I'm excited to see more of his stuff.
Yeah.
So before we move on to endo and chronic illness, I have one more wine question.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I think it was because of you when it really started was after our session was all became obsessed with orange wine. But then I also noticed that just like in general, I don't know if this is a Montreal thing or not, but everyone now is obsessed with orange wine. And so I'm here confused. Why did this only start to become popular? Because it's amazing. And yeah, if you can just explain like what it is exactly.
Yeah, that's a funny one because it's actually the most ancient way of making wine. It
No
originates
way.
from Georgia and from thousands and thousands of years ago. And it was just their way of making table wine. They would put white wine grapes in these huge amphora pots in the ground to stabilize the temperature. And instead of taking the skins and the stems off the grapes, which is how you make white wine, they kept
Hmm.
everything on. So whole cluster, just toss it in the pot and let it ferment.
Okay.
And keeping the skins on the grapes is what causes this beautiful orange hue. And it's also what causes that tannic structure. So the same way that red wine is made is how orange wine is made. You just keep the skins on the grapes. And so in the sommelier world, it is very entertaining to us that there's this huge trend because it's actually the oldest way of making wine. And so trends are cyclical. I think that things come back in fashion. And I think that orange wine is just a really fun pairing with a lot of different things. It has a little more body and depth than a white wine. So it's really fun to pair with food. Depending what white wine grape it is, it can either be this insanely aromatic and tannic orange, or it can be this like beautiful, zesty, and fresh orange that you want to drink on a patio. So I think
Mm,
people are also falling in love with the variety of them and realizing that there's plenty of them out there now. And especially in the natural wine community, it's very trendy right now to make orange wine, and I'm here for it. I love
me
orange
too.
wines. Yeah, I think that especially Italian oranges would probably be my weakness. And I have a lot of
I actually
fun
just bought on SAQ, uh, as per your recommendation. I bought two Trebbiano, right?
yeah,
Yeah, orange wines for Easter.
amazing. You're gonna love them for sure.
I'm excited.
That excites me.
But sorry, you were saying Italians are your favorite?
Oh yeah, and just yeah, that I'm really happy that people are enjoying this trend because it's fun, and I think it adds a lot of dialogue, especially for me. My most frequently asked question is, what is orange wine? So I really
Okay.
enjoy teaching people about it because people don't, yeah, a lot of people don't realize the origin of it. So
Hmm.
kind of fun to say that little story.
Oh, I'm so happy that I asked that. Um, so I'd like to move on now to talk about, you know, you represent to me really like the joie de vivre. And anyone who's worked in the restaurant industry, myself included, like you always kind of feel that in that industry, and like you usually end up gravitating towards other people, hanging out with people
Hmm.
in the industry. Like you just said, you've met so many people who are still close to you. So I was just wondering how getting diagnosed with, specifically in your case, endometriosis affected your career and how you manage it.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. I just finished about 8 months of medical leave. I was diagnosed this time last year. So it's been a huge roller coaster. I've had to completely reevaluate whether I could stay in this industry. Um, I definitely realized very quickly that I couldn't work in the same capacity that I did before because working on the floor in a restaurant is insanely demanding on your body, even for someone without an illness.
Hmm.
And so I did that last summer, and I would, if I did one shift, then I was in bed for the next 3 days. So I realized it wasn't sustainable. I ended up walking with a cane for most of last summer, because
Wow.
my pelvis and my hips were just in so much pain from working, and realized quite quickly that this was no longer sustainable for me. So, luckily, I do have my Whine Mom business, which is mostly virtual tastings and personalized wine packs. So that helped me a lot and kept my passion for wine alive. But luckily, about a month ago, I just started a new full time job at this amazing wine shop in Little Italy called Vinorama on Beaubien Est, 29 Beaubien Est. And it's phenomenal. It's really fun, and it's the dream job for me because I get to work with these amazing wines, but not have to run around like a chicken with my head cut off for 10 hours. So,
Hmm.
um, there's days that are harder than others. I end every day with an Epsom salt bath and stretches, and there's no more spontaneity in my life. Let's say I have to be rigid about taking care of myself, and self-care is a huge part of my life now in order to get through the day to day. And so I've definitely learned in the past year to listen to my body and what my body needs. And I think that the restaurant industry is very hard on people. And so I'm very fortunate that I get to work with wine in a different capacity.
I really don't know how you would do it. I mean, I know when we were working in the summers, you always think, oh, my feet are gonna get used to waiting. Like, it never happens. Like, I've never had a shift where, like, my feet feel great, or like, so many surfers that I see just from holding this too, so hard on your upper body, your feet, such a demanding job. I don't know, yeah, exactly what you said. I don't know how you would do that with debilitating pelvic pain.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard. And it's funny to say that because I just from working in the industry for 10 years, I have carpal tunnel in both my wrists from holding trays. And the doctor said that there's no point of me getting the surgery because I still do very repetitive movements every day by opening a bunch of wine bottles. Um,
mhm,
and luckily physio helps a lot, but yeah, it's very
good.
demanding on your body, and it's
Yeah.
it's a young person's game. I don't know many people in their 40s or 50s that are servers because you burn out very quickly.
hmm I I forget where it was. I think oh yeah, we were at a wedding and there was caterers there. It was like 2 weekends, last weekend, sorry. And there was caterers going around like offering appetizers, and every time they would come, me and my sister and my other friend who have done catering, it's like you have to take what's on the plate because like, you know how heavy it is. When I've done catering in the past, it was like I actually felt like my biceps would snap just from holding this heavy plate, and they always want these nice decorative plates, and I'm like, from an osteo perspective, please save my arms. But yeah, definitely a hard job, and tip your waiters if you're not doing that because it's a really tough industry to
It
be in.
is. Yeah. I always say that I believe every person should work in the service industry for at least a week in order to understand and appreciate more what goes behind it because it's really hard. And a lot of people think
I find you can tell when somebody hasn't worked in the industry.
100%.
Yeah, it taught me a lot for sure.
Yeah.
So I was curious, did you find when you got your diagnosis and when you were really going through, I guess, the peak of endo, did you find the wellness world to be helpful or harmful? That's a big topic with this podcast, is to kind of, humanize the wellness world because it can feel very overwhelming and very shame-inducing for a lot of people. So I was just curious if it helped you with your chronic illness or if it didn't, and kind of how you navigated that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say a bit of both, honestly, because I definitely benefited a lot from following a bunch of different endo accounts on Instagram and realizing that I'm not alone and that a lot of the pain, different types of pain I'm experiencing are normal for someone with endo. Because I was gaslit a lot for over a decade about the different pains that I experience. And so to have, these different voices on Instagram encouraging me to advocate for myself and also give me different tips and tricks as to how to speak to your doctor and get through to them um, was such an amazing resource. But there's also a lot of misinformation online, and there's a lot of guilt tripping online as to how you should be dealing with your endo. My pet peeve is people who say if you go vegan, you'll cure your endo. That's my biggest trigger because I have IBS. So there's absolutely no,
And a lot of people with endo do.
exactly. And so I find it hilarious when someone tells me, oh, why don't you drastically change your diet? If I were eating beans and legumes every day, I would be on the toilet. So can't can't go vegan. There's no way. And also, I'm very fortunate that my fiance is a butcher, so the meat that I do
Mm,
eat is extremely, uh,
high
organic
quality.
and doesn't go through anything like GMOs or any of that stuff. So I try to eat, fish and poultry as much as I can because red meat is a trigger, but at least when I do eat it, I know that I'm eating it from a certain farm that I can trace back to. And so I do encourage people
Hmm.
with endo to listen to their body and not listen to anybody else, because everyone is different. And it took me going through elimination diets, several times to realize, like, okay, yeah, garlic and onion are huge trigger foods for me, so I'll avoid those.
Hmm.
Um, and certain people telling me like, garlic's so good for you. What do you mean? You should be,
I know.
eating a clove of garlic a day. It's simply absurd. No one knows what your own body can handle, and so it's really important to listen to your own gut, literally, and see what works for you.
People will listen to anything they hear online. Like I've interviewed people and talked to people who have put garlic up their vagina to
Yeah,
help with certain things, you know? It's like
I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, no, it's true. I've had several friends put garlic up their vagina, and I'm always, it's
I haven't heard anyone for whom it's ended well.
no, definitely not. Um, I have actually a really embarrassing story about putting yogurt up my vagina when infection. That I'll share because it's too funny. I I thought I was a genius by putting yogurt in a tampon like
Hmm.
holder, and then freezing it. And then I didn't wait long enough, and so I put it up my vagina and gave my vagina a freezer burn, and it
Oh
was
my
stuck
God.
up there, and it was one of the most painful experiences of my life.
Oh my God.
Never again, just never again. And also I've had friends, mistakenly buy yogurt with a bunch of sugar in it and make their yeast infections worse.
Oh no.
Um, Guys, just stick to Canestin or whatever like is normal. Um, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm positive you're not the only person who has who has done something like that. You know, it's
Sure,
what bothers me about the alternative health world is like, you know, I'm just very much like not anti-doctor. And one of the problems that I see in the alternative health world is that people in the alternative world complain about doctors because they're too regulated, too rigid. Everything has to be scientifically proven. Whereas us, on the other hand, in the alternative world, it shouldn't mean we just have carte blanche to try and do everything. Like, especially something like that. Like that's I don't know. I just don't think some people should be giving recommendations like that if they don't have any training in like infections and pathology in that region, you know? So anyway, but yeah, thank you for sharing that.
yeah, I have a lot of stories like that because I've tried so many different alternatives to Canestin, because I was so
Yeah.
desperate and became immune to those types of things for a while because I had chronic yeast infections from being on antibiotics all the time. Um, and yeah, you and I have spoken about this before, but I think it's really, really important to critically think about both worlds, holistic and Western medicine, because there's issues with both and there's also pros to both. So it's important to do your own research, but also, use your head a bit, like think about it for a couple of minutes and be like, does it make sense to put garlic up my vagina? Probably not. Uh, you know, there, yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to both. And I think that with my endo, it was really important to figure out a mix of both practices to um, help me with my day to day,
Hmm.
100%, because I don't know where I would be without my progesterone that I take every day. I take 2 milligrams of progesterone every morning, but
Hmm.
also I swear by my turmeric pill and my probiotics and my omega 3s and my vitamin D. There's certain things that you have to integrate into your health practice and see if they work. Because I definitely believe in herbal remedies as well. I use a lot of raspberry leaf tea for cramps, etc. Cramp
Hmm.
bark in the morning, and so I think that it's good to explore both worlds.
Yeah, and I do think that the alternative world has a lot of, medication shaming.
Mm,
And one thing I just wanted to point out after doing so much research on endo is that it really is a therapy. People with endometriosis, they have a major hormonal imbalance. So balancing those hormones and getting them back to baseline, back to, healthy, if you want to put it that way, should only be seen as a therapy. That should never be seen as your failure for taking drugs and not being able to cure it with garlic and da da da. So that's where I find the alternative world needs to wake up a little bit, is that, oh, I'm going to annoy people, but not all big pharma is out there to do bad things. Like the scientists and the chemists who went into that did so to serve people. And there has been so much good that has come from that world. And exactly like you said, it's always like think critically and, look into what you're taking, why you're taking it. Does your doctor even know why you're taking it? And it's things like that. But a lot of medication is therapy. A lot of people need their medication to survive, and it's not a bad thing. But like you said, yeah, they're finding the balance and doing your own research, and yeah, I'll just leave that there.
Yeah. No, I mean,
but
I couldn't agree more. I don't know where I would be without my IUD and my progesterone. And at first, yeah, I got shamed a lot for being on these different medications, but it's very easy for people to judge when they're not the ones experiencing the pain, right?
mm-hmm,
And I've even had different endo advocates tell me, "Oh, well, how come you don't try to go off these hormones? It messes with your mood and your affect and et cetera, et cetera." But if I can't survive day to day, then then I need these types of medications. So I just can't emphasize enough that I think each person is different and you can't judge their journey because they're not inside your skin. So I think that you really have to be your biggest advocate. And I definitely think that um, because there's no cure to endo right now, there's no shame in using these band-aid solutions like hormones or NSAIDs to get through your day-to-day. And yeah, you definitely have to listen to your own body. I was telling my gyno that I still experience terrible pelvic pain, and his first reaction was to up my dose of my progesterone. And I said, hard pass. I just got used to this amount that I'm on now.
mm-hmm,
um, can you refer me to a pelvic floor physio instead? I would rather try that before resorting to
mm-hmm,
adding more medication to my regimen. And so, you definitely also have to think critically with doctors because they are, I have to say, they're definitely happy to prescribe medication quite quickly. And
mm-hmm,
so you have to be careful with that. But, um, the what's the word? The end all and be all is that they're not out to get you, is what I'm trying to say, is that they are trying to help you find these solutions to get through your day to day. And so
mm-hmm,
I'm very lucky that I finally found my routine that helps me get through my day to day. And it's definitely a mix of
mm-hmm.
both Western and holistic practices.
Yes, I really like that point because it's so easy to criticize doctors and conventional medicine because they have been given a monopoly on health. But you need to think for yourself, like physios, osteos, naturopath, even doctors, to specialize. You have to do, like, for example, to become an orthopedic surgeon, you have to do, on top of your medical degree, 5 years just to become an expert in that. So an orthopedic surgeon is not an expert in gynecology, in heart, in cardiology, in urology, And the same thing goes for osteos, the same thing goes for naturo. There is no one out there who really truly has a monopoly on everything health, knows everything about each domain, because if you just think about it, how long each person has had to study their specific realm. So sadly, a lot of the time, especially with chronic illness, it's really doing your own research and being your own health advocate, like finding different resources, especially in the alternative health side, because that's not pushed a lot. A lot of the research comes down to yourself, and also just remembering that your doctor is a human. They do not have a brain that has memorized every single health facet out there. And yeah, I just, yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said.
Yeah. For those of
What
who, think that they have endo or experience certain symptoms, I can't encourage you enough to do research. And I don't believe in self-diagnosis, but I do believe in, um, furthering your knowledge. And also, if you experience terrible period pain, it is not normal. So definitely either seek guidance from a gynecologist or just start, reading up about it a bit more, because a lot of women have terrible period pain and just live through it and don't check up on it because doctors, diminish the experience. And sadly, that's not how it should be. So definitely look into it if you have debilitating period pain, because it
if you need a barometer, the barometer should be, does your period affect your ability to do your day-to-day activities? And if the answer is yes, something is wrong, because yes, cramps can be normal, but people who have normal cramps can still go to school, can still go do their job, can still get through the day. If you're passing out, if you're fainting, throwing up, if you're if you have any extreme pain or symptoms that affect you from getting through your day to day, that is a red flag and that deserves an investigation.
hmm
And you know, I think I read this somewhere, and one of my pathology teachers always said, tell your doctor to write down, I am refusing, based on my patient's symptoms, XYZ. So let's say debilitating period cramps, nausea, throwing up, fainting. I refuse to prescribe this patient their tests and then ask for another referral. Because usually that will be enough to get them to wake up and be like, this is not normal. It's
yeah.
and it's not necessarily saying that it is going to be endometriosis, but there are several things out there that can cause a painful period. But you deserve answers, especially here. You've paid taxes your entire life. You deserve to have a pelvic exam.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that is a good point. There's so many different things that it could be. It's not always going to be endo, but I think people don't realize how common it is. One in
Mm-hmm.
10 people have it, and so it's just as common as diabetes and asthma. And when I found that out, I was shell shocked. I couldn't believe it. Um, it's one of the most underfunded illnesses and also one of the most common. So my hopes for future generations is that there's huge improvements in funding and research, because it's really sad.
It's really sad, and there's a trend on TikTok right now, and I might get the numbers wrong, but they're comparing, endo is 1 in 10. Getting bitten by a shark is 1 in 4 million. And yet, how much do we talk about it?
Yeah.
How much are we scared of sharks? And like, there's an entire Shark Week. It's like, meanwhile, people still don't know what I'm talking about when I say endometriosis. And it is one of the most underfunded chronic illnesses. And that 10% or that 1 in 10 is actually, a lot of studies are showing, is actually a underestimate because it's so hard to diagnose and so hard to see. And yeah, it's another stat which I found crazy is that diabetes, another chronic illness, over the past 20 years has gotten 150 times more funding than endometriosis.
Ugh,
Yeah,
it frustrates me.
yeah. Anyways, we do have a long way to go, but
Yeah,
just a few stats to get some people thinking.
crazy.
Um, so just to kind of wrap this section up, I'm curious, what alternative therapies do you use and that have really helped you?
I've been doing pelvic physio for about 3 months, and that's been a massive game changer for me. Um, I experience a lot of pelvic pain, and because I'm in so much pain all the time, my pelvis is seized up. So to learn how to relax my pelvis has been a life altering experience. I'm constantly checking in now and seeing, am I seizing or can I relax more?
Mm-hmm.
Using dilator therapy has been extremely helpful. One, sad taboo part of endometriosis that people don't talk about is that it makes your sex life extremely challenging. And so I've been, working towards being able to have penetrative sex again, because the idea of doing it is unfathomable because I'm in so much pain all the time. So to be doing this pelvic floor physio has been extremely helpful. I use Marianne Truong at Ask Physio in Westmount, and I couldn't recommend her enough. She's amazing. And what I find really cool about her is, I was seeing her once a week for a while, and then last month she said, "All right, you're making a lot of progress, so now we can see each other once a month." So she's not out here trying to, steal anyone's money. She's really there to just help you progress. And then if she sees that you're disciplined enough and that you're doing the exercises at home, then that's amazing. And you and I touched on this last time we spoke, but I think it is really important to focus on one therapy at a time in order to give it your all and see whether it's actually benefiting you. So that's the therapy I've been focusing on lately, but I'm really excited to, try maybe acupuncture or osteo or something next, and see if
Don't
that
be
helps.
shy to ask your therapist what their long-term plan is, because they should have a plan for you. They should want to empower you and to not have you rely on them for the rest of their life, the rest of your life.
Yeah, 100%. And so, yeah, when I first came in, she spent almost 2 hours with me doing a huge workup and seeing what my main issues were. And for me, it was pelvic pain and problems with urination. I feel like my bladder is full when there's only a little bit of urine in there. And I think that's also a very common symptom of endo. And so that was a really hard exercise, was to hold in my pee and do mental exercises to calm myself down and realize that I don't actually need to pee right now. There's no reason to. And, there's a lot of anxiety that surrounds that. And so that's been a really hard one on me as well, but I'm getting better, and it's all thanks to pelvic physio. So I highly encourage it for those who have endo. And full warning, it is a very invasive process. She gets very intimate with your parts down there, but it's very worth it. And so if you find someone that you're comfortable with, I think it's extremely worth it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And there's actually tons of research out there supporting it, especially for endo, which I was surprised to see, because it's one of the last things that a lot of doctors will recommend. And so when I went on to like PubMed, things that, doctors always are preaching about, I was shocked at how much information there actually was, and that it is not the standard, and that people aren't immediately recommending it to people with endometriosis. So in case you're ever questioning it, I can send you the receipts. There's tons of research out there, that promising research.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because when I posted that I'm doing physio on my endo page, I was flooded with questions by strangers and friends alike asking me, what is it? I think I need it. So even people who don't have endo, if you experience issues down there in any shape or form that results in pelvic pain, I highly suggest it, because, it's not just for endo. There's so many different reasons to go see a pelvic physio.
Absolutely. On my Instagram, I have a lot of kind of content, just giving you ideas of reasons you should see them, that are, again, classic because we're women. Just we're told that everything is normal, but there's so much, we've touched on a few things here, but if ever you're wondering also, what's normal for my bladder, or pain, or even just the pain during my periods or blood flow, all these things are reasons to possibly see especially after birth. Women after birth are told oh, well, you had a baby, things are going to fall out. No, that is not a thing. Ever.
Oh my God. That is awful.
I know it is.
You're actually one of the main reasons that I went to go see a pelvic physiotherapist, because you have such amazing content on your page. And
Thank
it
you.
made me realize oh, okay, yeah, this is probably something that can be really helpful for me. Um, and so I'm very grateful for your page, and I refer your page to a lot of different people
Oh, thank you.
for, various reasons because, yeah, for example, I have a family member who just had a baby and she's really struggling. So I
Mm,
think it's great that you encompass so many different topics on your page. I think that's really important.
thank you. So last question. Last illness question or
Hmm.
chronic illness question. What advice would you give to someone dealing with any form of chronic illness while also balancing their career?
Ooh, that's a hard one. But I would say as much as you can, listen to your body. And, a lot of people will try to diminish your experience and tell you that it's normal to be in pain, but no one lives in your body. So if you need to take a beat and take 5 minutes to either do a stretch or take a walk or what have you, advocate for yourself. This is a taboo topic, but I'm a big advocate for telling your employers that you need a little bit of extra time in certain ways. Not everyone agrees with me. A lot of people with endo choose not to disclose that to their employers, but I think it's extremely important because there's certain moments where you may be in debilitating pain and can't even move. And so I think it's important to be able to take the time to go to the bathroom, take a breather, drink some water, um, do whatever you need to do and make sure that your employer is understanding about it. And, I do come from a privileged space where my bosses are extremely understanding. They're all fathers of little kids. And so they're kind of all very paternal and understand that uh, I have good days and bad days, and so some days I'm sitting down a lot more than I should be, let's say, but that's the capacity I have. So as much as you can, I know this isn't possible for everyone, but try your best to do what you need to do for yourself. We're in such a grind culture and people
Hmm.
tell you to ignore the pain, push through it, get through your day. But it will ultimately bite you in the ass uh, if you don't take the time to take care of yourself. You have one body for your whole life. Take as best of care of it as you can. That's my biggest advice.
Hmm. Oh, it's definitely powerful. So to wrap things up, how can people find you?
Yeah.
What are the full spectrum of your services, and what can we look forward to for the summer months from you?
So for my wine oriented content, you can find me at Whine Mom, which is underscore WHINE mom underscore. And I now still offer curated virtual tastings. And I'm going to be still doing pop ups, which will probably be more often during the summer just because Montreal has so much more energy and time.
So
So
excited.
really excited. I have a couple lined up that should be really fun. I no longer do mix packs because I do have a full-time job at a wine shop. So if anyone wants my selection, the wine shop is amazing, and that's called Vinorama in Little Italy. You can come visit me there. And for my endo account, I'm not as active just because I just started a full-time job, but I do post a lot more to my stories than posts. That's endo mom with an underscore on each side as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yes, this was great. Well, have a great rest of your weekend,
You too. Thank you so much. Talk
and
soon.
we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.